The sound of a fork clattering against fine china echoed through the upscale restaurant. For a moment, everything seemed to freeze as Eliza Montgomery, the 42-year-old CEO of Montgomery Technologies, stared across the room at a scene that would change multiple lives forever. What happened next would not only transform a struggling family but would spark a movement that touched millions of hearts across the world. If you're looking for a story that will remind you why human connection matters more than anything else, keep watching until the end, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more real-life stories that will restore your faith in humanity. Before Eliza Montgomery became the billionaire CEO of a tech empire valued at $8.7 billion, she was just a little girl sitting across from her father at a diner very similar to this one, watching him count pennies to pay for their meal. 25 years later, history was about to repeat itself in the most unexpected way. It was a Tuesday evening at Bellini's, one of the most exclusive restaurants in downtown Seattle. Rain pattered against the floor-to-ceiling windows, creating a soothing backdrop to the quiet murmur of conversation and the gentle clink of silverware against plates. The restaurant's warm lighting cast a golden glow over the white tablecloths and crystal glasses, creating an atmosphere of refined elegance. Eliza sat alone at her usual corner table, absently twirling a strand of her chestnut hair while reviewing quarterly projections on her tablet. At 42, she carried herself with the confidence of someone who had built an empire from scratch. Her tailored navy suit and minimal jewelry spoke of understated wealth, the kind that didn't need to announce itself. The waiter had just served her usual glass of Cabernet when the restaurant's front door opened, letting in a gust of cold air and 3 unexpected guests. A man in his mid-30s entered, holding the hands of 2 children, a girl who looked about 7 and a boy who couldn't have been more than 5. The man's jacket was worn at the elbows, and his shoes, though polished, showed signs of repair. Despite this, he carried himself with dignity, leaning down to whisper something to his children that made them both straighten their postures and smooth down their modest but clean clothes. The maitre d' approached them with a barely concealed look of assessment, his eyebrows rising slightly as he consulted his reservation book. Eliza couldn't hear the conversation, but she could read the body language, the man's shoulders tensing, his hand reaching for what appeared to be a carefully folded envelope in his pocket, likely containing saved cash for this special occasion. "I made a reservation 3 weeks ago," the man said, his voice carrying across the restaurant during a momentary lull in conversation. "It's my daughter's birthday. Table for Reeves, James Reeves." Something about the name made Eliza's hand freeze midway to her wine glass. Reeves. The name triggered a distant memory, something from her childhood that she couldn't quite place. The maitre d' eventually led the family to a table not far from Eliza's. The little girl's eyes were wide with wonder as she took in the crystal chandeliers and elegant decor. The boy clutched a small, well-loved stuffed dinosaur, whispering to it as if sharing the experience with a friend. James Reeves helped his children into their seats with practiced care, showing them how to place their napkins on their laps. When the waiter handed them menus, Eliza noticed how James discreetly checked the prices first, his expression momentarily faltering before he composed himself and smiled at his children. "Remember what we talked about," he said softly to them. "This is a special treat for Emma's birthday. You can each choose one main course, and we'll share a dessert." The little girl, Emma, nodded solemnly. "I know, Daddy. We're being extra careful with money until you find a new job." James's face flushed slightly as he glanced around, hoping no one had heard. But Eliza had. And something about the interaction made her chest tighten. She watched as James studied the menu with the concentration of someone doing complex calculations, his finger tracing down the column of prices rather than descriptions. When the waiter returned, James ordered the least expensive pasta dish for himself and appropriate children's meals for his kids. When asked about appetizers or drinks, he politely declined, requesting just water for the table. The waiter's smile dimmed slightly, no doubt calculating the diminishing tip on what was already going to be a modest bill. As they waited for their food, James pulled out 2 small wrapped packages from his jacket pocket. "Happy birthday, Emma," he said, his voice rich with love despite the simplicity of the gifts. Emma carefully unwrapped the first package to reveal a second-hand book. "The Secret Garden," she exclaimed with genuine delight. "You remembered it was my favorite at the library." "And this one is from your brother," James said, handing her the second package. The little boy bounced in his seat. "I picked it myself, Emmy. With my allowance." The second package contained a handmade bracelet of colorful wooden beads. Emma immediately put it on, hugging her brother tightly. "It's perfect, Ollie. I love it." Eliza found herself unable to look away from this family. There was something about them, about the way they treasured what little they had, about the father's determination to give his children a special experience despite what was clearly financial hardship. And then it happened. As their food arrived, James reached into his pocket and pulled out a small pill bottle. He discreetly took out a pill and swallowed it with water. The movement was quick, practiced, meant to be unnoticed by his children. But Eliza saw it, and she also saw the slight tremor in his hand that he quickly tried to hide. In that moment, a memory crystallized in Eliza's mind. James Reeves. She did know that name. 5 years ago, Montgomery Technologies had acquired a smaller tech company called Innovate Tech. There had been layoffs as part of the restructuring, standard procedure in acquisitions. James Reeves had been one of the engineers let go. She remembered now because there had been a note in his file about a recent medical diagnosis, something her HR team had flagged as a potential liability issue. The realization hit her like a physical blow. This man had lost his job because of a decision she had made with the casual stroke of a pen. A decision that, for her, had been about numbers and efficiency, but for him had clearly been life-altering. As this understanding washed over her, Eliza's fork slipped from her fingers and clattered loudly against her plate. The sound drew eyes from nearby tables, including James and his children. For a brief moment, their eyes met across the restaurant. There was no recognition in his gaze, just the polite embarrassment of a stranger acknowledging another's small mishap. But for Eliza, something fundamental shifted in that moment of connection. Without fully understanding what she was doing, she signaled to her waiter. What happened next would change not just one family's trajectory but would eventually touch thousands of lives. It would remind a jaded world that sometimes, the most powerful acts are the ones done without cameras or recognition, the ones that come from a place of genuine human connection. As Eliza spoke quietly to her waiter, she had no idea that her impulsive decision would eventually lead to headlines, a viral video, and a movement that would inspire corporate leaders across the country to reconsider what true success looked like. She only knew that, for the first time in years, she felt something breaking open inside her, a wall she hadn't even realized she'd built. The waiter nodded and moved away from Eliza's table, approaching the restaurant manager who listened intently before glancing in James's direction. What followed would be described by witnesses as the unthinkable, not because it was grandiose, but because in our cynical world, simple human kindness has become the most surprising act of all. James was midway through explaining to Emma why they would need to share one dessert when the restaurant's chef emerged from the kitchen, followed by several staff members carrying a small cake with a single candle. The entire restaurant seemed to pause as the procession made its way directly to their table. "I understand we have a birthday girl here," the chef said warmly, placing the exquisite chocolate cake, clearly not on the menu, in front of a wide-eyed Emma. James looked confused. "I'm sorry, there must be some mistake. We didn't order." "No mistake, sir," the manager interjected smoothly. "This is courtesy of the house. We have a tradition of celebrating special occasions here at Bellini's." As the staff began singing "Happy Birthday," Emma's face lit up with pure joy. Ollie clapped enthusiastically, his stuffed dinosaur temporarily forgotten. And James looked around in bewilderment, his eyes glistening with unexpected emotion at this kindness from strangers. What James didn't know was that this was just the beginning. Eliza had done much more than order a cake. She had set in motion a chain of events that would unfold over the coming weeks and months, events that would restore not just financial stability to the Reeves family but something far more precious: hope. From her corner table, Eliza watched the scene unfold, her own eyes misting over. For the first time in years, the weight of her success felt like something other than a burden. It felt like possibility. It felt like purpose. As Emma blew out her candle and made a wish, Eliza made one of her own, a wish that would lead her to redefine what it meant to be truly wealthy in a world starving for connection. The story of what happened next, how Eliza Montgomery tracked down James Reeves the following day, how she created a new division at Montgomery Technology specifically designed to employ parents with medical needs and flexible schedule requirements, how James's innovative ideas, the very ones that had been overlooked during the acquisition, eventually led to the company's most successful product line. All of that would become the stuff of corporate legend. But on that rainy Tuesday night, it was just about a little girl's birthday, a father's love, and a successful woman remembering what it felt like to be human. If this story has touched your heart, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. Remember, the most meaningful connections often happen when we least expect them, when we drop our forks, and do the unthinkable. The following morning, Eliza sat in her corner office on the 47th floor of Montgomery Tower, staring out at the Seattle skyline. Rain still streaked the floor-to-ceiling windows, but today the gray skies didn't match her mood. For the first time in longer than she could remember, she felt a clarity of purpose that went beyond quarterly reports and shareholder value. Her executive assistant, Marcus, entered after a brief knock. "Your 9 a.m. is here," he said, then paused, studying her face. "Everything okay? You seem different today." Eliza turned from the window. "I need you to find someone for me. An engineer named James Reeves. He worked for Innovate Tech before we acquired them 5 years ago." Marcus raised an eyebrow but knew better than to question her directly. "Any particular reason?" "I'm creating a new division," Eliza said, the idea crystallizing as she spoke. "Remote work, flexible hours, comprehensive health benefits. I want to target parents with specialized skills who need accommodations for family or medical reasons." "That's not exactly in line with our current efficiency models," Marcus said carefully. Eliza smiled. "No, it's not. And that's precisely why we're doing it." While Marcus set out to locate James Reeves, Eliza immersed herself in research. She pulled the old acquisition files, reviewing the list of employees who had been let go during the restructuring. She read through James's personnel file more carefully this time, noting his impressive engineering credentials and the medical note that had been flagged, a diagnosis of early-onset Parkinson's disease. The HR recommendation had been clear: potential liability, unpredictable attendance, increasing medical costs. All perfectly sound business reasons for termination during a restructuring. All perfectly devoid of humanity. By afternoon, Marcus had located James. After losing his job at Innovate Tech, he had worked a series of increasingly lower-paying positions as his condition made traditional office hours more difficult. His most recent employment had been at a small software company that had gone bankrupt 3 months earlier. He was currently receiving unemployment benefits while searching for work that could accommodate his medical needs and single-parent status. "His resume is still impressive," Marcus noted, handing Eliza the file he'd compiled. His specialty was in adaptive interface design, making technology more accessible for people with different abilities. Eliza felt something click into place. "That's exactly what we've been missing in the consumer division. We've been designing for the average user, not for the full spectrum of human capability." She spent the rest of the day restructuring budgets and creating a proposal for what she was already calling the Adaptive Solutions Division. By evening, she had a solid plan to present to her board, one that would not only create a place for James Reeves but potentially open Montgomery Technologies to an untapped market of consumers with diverse needs. As she was preparing to leave for the day, her phone rang. It was the manager from Bellini's. "Ms. Montgomery," he said, "I wanted to let you know that everything was taken care of as you requested. The family never knew who was behind it." "Thank you," Eliza said. And the other matter? The college fund has been established anonymously, as you specified. The bank will contact Mr. Reeves next week with the details. Eliza thanked him again and hung up, feeling a strange mix of emotions. The college fund for Emma and Ollie had been an impulse, something she could easily afford that would change the trajectory of their lives. But she knew money alone wasn't the answer. James Reeves didn't need charity, he needed opportunity. He needed to be valued for his skills and accommodated for his challenges. The next morning, Eliza did something she hadn't done in years. She drove herself to work instead of taking her usual car service. She wanted time to think, to prepare for the meeting she had scheduled with James Reeves at 10 a.m. Marcus had arranged it under the pretense of discussing a consulting opportunity, not revealing Eliza's personal interest or knowledge of his situation. As she navigated through morning traffic, Eliza found herself wondering about the kind of man James was. She had seen his love for his children, his dignity in the face of financial struggle. But what had happened to the children's mother? How was he managing his medical condition while caring for 2 young kids? What dreams had he been forced to set aside? When she arrived at the office, Marcus informed her that James was already waiting in the small conference room. He's 15 minutes early, Marcus noted. And he's nervous. Really nervous. Eliza nodded, suddenly feeling nervous herself. This wasn't a normal business meeting. This was personal in a way that business rarely was for her. She paused outside the conference room door, taking a deep breath before entering. James Reeves stood as soon as she walked in, his handshake firm despite the almost imperceptible tremor in his right hand. "Mr. Reeves," she said, "thank you for coming in on such short notice." "Thank you for the opportunity, Ms. Montgomery," he replied, his voice steady and professional despite his obvious nervousness. "I have to admit, I was surprised to get the call. Montgomery Technologies is, well, it's the pinnacle of the industry." Eliza gestured for him to sit and took the chair across from him rather than at the head of the table. "I've been reviewing your work history," she said, opening his file. "Your specialization in adaptive interface design is impressive." James's expression flickered with something, pride, perhaps, or nostalgia. "That was my passion project at Innovate Tech. We were developing interfaces that could adapt to users with motor control issues, visual impairments, cognitive differences." He paused, a shadow crossing his face. "The project was discontinued after the acquisition." Eliza met his eyes directly. "That was a mistake." James blinked, clearly not expecting this admission. "Mr. Reeves," Eliza continued, "I'm going to be direct with you. I was at Bellini's restaurant last night. I saw you with your children celebrating your daughter's birthday." James's face flushed. I don't understand. I recognized your name this morning. You were part of the Innovate Tech acquisition 5 years ago. You were let go during the restructuring." His expression hardened slightly. "Yes, I was. Along with 37 others. It was a difficult time." Eliza nodded, acknowledging the understatement. "I'm creating a new division at Montgomery Technologies. Adaptive Solutions. We'll be developing products specifically designed for users with diverse needs and abilities. I want you to head it up." James stared at her, clearly struggling to process this unexpected turn. "Ms. Montgomery, I appreciate the offer, but I have to be transparent with you. I have early-onset Parkinson's. Some days are better than others. I'm a single father with 2 young children. Traditional office hours are challenging for me." "I know," Eliza said simply. "The position comes with flexible hours, remote work options when needed, and comprehensive health coverage. The team you'll be building will include other parents and individuals with similar needs for accommodation." James's professional composure cracked slightly. "Why? Why would you do this?" It was the question Eliza had been asking.